Welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Strategy Mob. Today, I have a very special guest. I have the oh-so-famous Mr. Brian Allan in the house. Brian, what's going on, man?
Everything's going well, you know? It's a crazy day counting the election votes. And
yeah, man, for you, it's got to be nuts.
Now, it is.
I have to ask, because you had to go lower. Was it lowering your thermostat or raising your thermostat before we started?
I did to lower the temperature. Yeah, it's
too hot. California. And I'm like, it snowed the other day where I am. So you're in sunny California. Wow. I'm just feeling a little jealous.
Yeah, only in California do we have global warming. Nowhere else.
It doesn't exist anywhere else, all right?
Right.
Hey, Brian, for everybody out there that's watching and listening right now and don't know your story or how you kind of got started in the industry, I thought that'd be a really cool place to just kind of kick off today's podcast. So what is the origin story that is Brian Allan?
Well, I got to go back to when I was 5 years old and I got my first Hot Wheel. That's where it started. So I started actually trading Hot Wheels, and I kid you not, I had no idea it was a precursor to getting into the car business, but I'm probably one of the few that actually grew up through elementary school all the way through high school and college saying, I want to sell cars for a living, while everybody else wanted to be a doctor, lawyer, or stockbroker.
That's totally true. That's pretty rare.
Very rare. And people laughed at me. But the funny thing is I started making more money than all my stockbroker and doctor and lawyer friends, and I was actually happy. But
that's good.
I started actually when I was 18 years old on my 18th birthday selling cars at Keys Motors in Los Angeles, actually Van Nuys, at their brand new Mazda store. And I was promptly fired 30 days later. Because I cared too much about the customer. It was kind of crazy. But even back then, I wanted to walk them through the process and take a long time to deliver the car and make sure they knew everything. And that wasn't really how things went. It was kind of kiss them goodbye as soon as they signed the dotted line. And that was fortuitous, though, because then I went to Beverly Hills Lincoln Mercury. And this is 1980. By the way, 40 years ago.
It's a good time to still sell Lincolns.
Oh, my God. Well, the funny part, we had Peugeot and Lincolns.
Wow.
And the Lincolns, for a fully loaded one were about 18 grand. And they had at that time, a big rebate of $500. But interest rates were 19%. So
yeah,
I have to laugh.
Everyone doesn't remember double-digit interest rates.
Oh,
we're sitting here, people are complaining about 1.99. I'm like, you got nothing. Don't.
It was to bite my lip in recent. I retired from retail at Galpin Motors after 33 years in 2018, and when customers would come in and say, "Can you do better than 0.9?" I go into my story. I say my first mortgage was 17% in 1983, but so I've loved the car business. Again, Beverly Hills Lincoln, I put myself through Cal State Northridge, and then I joined the Galpin family, what became Galpin Premier Collection in 1985. And I opened 9 of Galpin's franchises. Of course, they're famous for the Ford store in Los Angeles, Galpin Motors, the patriarch, Bert Bachman, and now one of his sons, Bo Bachman, runs it. And what an amazing family. And it was so blessed to run a group of 9 stores. We had Aston Martin, Volvo, Jag, Lincoln, formerly Mercury. We even had Saturn, which was amazing. Really sad to see that franchise go. But basically, I opened stores, and then I oversaw multiple stores for a long period of time. And then I also got into tech, and my buddy Ruben Munoz, who's now a VP of Dealer Socket, actually did one of the first dealer internet websites in the United States that I know of for Galpin.
I think I've heard of that company before, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that small
Socket.
little company. Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah. Well, Ruben's amazing. He started in the rental car department at Galpin and became the director of e-commerce and put Galpin way ahead of the curve and never looked back. So I'm a car guy true and through. Today, I'm in a different part of the car business. I'm in mobility, and I'm the senior vice president of HyreCar, and we help dealers get into mobility and help leverage their current infrastructure to earn more money renting cars that eventually get sold to drivers. So we can talk about that later if time permits, but
absolutely, for
I
sure.
love it.
You know what's funny is I actually kind of had a similar path into cars. My very first business was Big J's Pit Stop, and it was at the local drag strip. And drag racing was just something that the family did, and I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. And I would go out there, and all the kids would be running around like crazy, and the adults were trying to get them just to slow down, sit down. Right, it's a dangerous place to be running around.
Yeah.
So I opened up. It was a 10 by 10 foot tent. And I set up these tables, and I got all these Hot Wheels, and I got them on consignment actually from a hobby store, so I didn't have to pay for the inventory.
Oh, wait a minute! You're ahead of the curve.
And instead of selling them for the 50 cents or $1 a piece, I was selling them for $2-3 a piece. And I remember
Wait a minute. Over sticker?
Oh, it was over sticker. And I remember the parents would come by, and they'd be going like, "You're crazy! Come on, seriously?" For that, and then I would show them, and I built this big 20-foot long track, and it had 10 different tracks you can do it. And really, the parents realized is that, oh, I'm not just buying Hot Wheel, I'm buying 30 minutes of my kids now playing with this, and you're babysitting them. I'm like, yeah, now you get it.
Fantastic!
It was great. They'd give the kids $10 or $20, and they'd sit there, and then they'd go put a car down the track, and it was too slow. Then they'd come back and buy another one. It was great. But Hot Wheels. But I find that this industry does kind of attract the type of kind of entrepreneur, kind of hustler, type characters, and it's like so. Yeah, I mean, it's funny how many people I've had an opportunity to talk to, and we have a lot of similarities of kind of backgrounds and stuff. So I think that's so cool. Well, Brian, I want to get into kind of some of the topics that we talked about earlier. And you'd written a couple articles that had caught my eye, and we agree on so many levels. I was like, I gotta have this guy on. Like, we gotta chat more about it. Now, one of the first thing I want to talk to you about today, which is a big one for me, is kind of dealership employee empowerment. I'm a firm believer that a happy employee creates a happy customer.
Amen.
But you got some really cool thoughts on this. So let's go into that. How do you define dealership employee empowerment, and how does a dealership go about executing that?
Well, to define it is that give an employee enough authority that they can handle, and it boils down to, frankly, what something you just said, which was just sums it up, is a happy employee is going to create a happy customer, really. And also, most customers, look, we're all customers. We don't want to deal with 3 people to make a transaction. And, unless you have to, right? Now, you go to the doctor, first you see the receptionist, then you see the nurse, then you see the doctor. It's kind of understood. But wouldn't it be a pleasant surprise if the doctor greeted you and then you just stayed with the doctor? Maybe a little unrealistic. Yeah, maybe a little unrealistic. But in the car business, what we know is traditionally we've had many people involved in the process because, maybe right, maybe wrong, we felt it helped the dealership earn more revenue. And, for the longest time, most dealerships said a finance department has to be absolutely separate from the sales department because the customer's done with the salesman once they agree to buy the car. They need a fresh face to buy after sales items, whether it's a warranty or a paint sealant. And that person's going to have more energy because their income is based on those sales. And pretty hard to prove wrong until a pandemic comes.
It was just like, and of course we love, in our business, we're made up of 3-letter acronyms and 4-letter words, right? Yeah. And I could never stand the term that we can't, the box.
Yes.
The box.
Although,
I'm talking about a
it,
horrible place to send your customers.
basically customers would agree with that term, right? It's solitary confinement for the part of the journey that should be the most pleasant. You've already negotiated,
Exactly.
right? Now we're going to put you in a square box, and some dealerships didn't even have glass. One of the things about Galp and Bert Bachman, he hated being locked in a four-walled room, and he made everything glass. All the offices were glass.
That's nice. I remember some offices being like a closet.
Yes. So going back to the employee empowerment, so a lot of debate for digital retail of, how can we give the customer the option to select their own after sales items, paint, sealant, alarms, warranties, etc. And everyone's scared to make that leap because we got to protect the golden goose. We know that this is working the majority of the time, except if you have to ask the customer's full of anxiety about buying a car because of that going in the box. So tools have been out really the last 10 years for progressive dealers to start allowing the salesman to do more of the F&I process. But now, necessity becomes the mother of invention. The pandemic hits, and you're first of all, you're lucky if your finance manager showed up, because they tended to be the little bit older person in the organization, and they were scared of COVID. Now, what do we have to do? Well, we're forced to have the salesperson do as much of the process as possible. And something beautiful happened, and I can say this firsthand because I know that it happened at Galpin. They realized that, oh my goodness, not only are customers happier, but the process is happening faster. And contrary to popular belief, the world is round. It's not flat.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. People are buying more product because they're more comfortable with the process. So it's a wonderful thing. And employee empowerment goes even further. I started the dealership as technology improved, having the salespeople appraise cars. And you want to talk about sacrilegious. But,
no kidding.
Well, here was an easy test. I took 5 of our appraisers at Galpin, and I had them appraise the same car, and they had a 30 to 40% variance.
Oh, that's huge.
Right?
Very common.
Now, if I'm going to have that kind of variance with professionals, how much worse could it be with salespeople? And the customer's more comfortable with the salesperson. Now you have word tracks, right? You don't say how many people died in that accident when you see a dent. What you say is, oh, I'm glad you didn't fix that because we can fix it cheaper. If the tires are bald, you don't say, holy mackerel, it's a good thing you're still alive. You say, glad you didn't replace those tires. We can do it cheaper. So now the customer's feeling not beat up about their car. When they get a valuation and they're part of the process, they understand it, and they're not seeing Guido go over there and look like he's about to break the car in half.
Well, you know what? I just wanted to stop you there one second, because I think it's super, super important what you just said there is getting the customer involved in it. But for us to get the customer involved, we have to empower our employees with a process and technology to do so. You'd get a kick out of this. I had a Mitsubishi dealership. Look, I was a Mitsubishi dealership. Okay, challenging brand right from the beginning.
They're one of my favorite dealerships at the moment on our mobility platform.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. But I mean, look, it came with its challenges, But I wanted a flag out front because I needed to get a floor plan, and that's what you had to do to get a floor plan. And it was just like, okay, so I got a Mitsubishi dealership. It was pretty much a used car dealership with a flag out front.
Very smart, by the way. Very smart.
Well, you had to, right? It was something along that lines. I knew that I had to close at 45% for me to just cover my monthly nut. Like that was it. Like, and the thing, there wasn't an option. It wasn't like this was a good idea. It was like, no. It was like there was only going to be so many people that were going to walk through my dealership every day or every month, and I had to close that much. So it was, there was this famous quote that I remember saying is like, you don't, you first work with a customer and then you work back towards technology. So you identify the goal and then work back towards. And too often I think as dealerships, we start with the technology and just assume the technology is going to answer or create the goal and objective or make the customer happy. Here's some funny thing you get a kick out of this is what we did is we took the pricing, which is like almost like just as much fun as the box, right? Like, let me get a payment. I'll fill out a worksheet because boy, that sounds like fun work. And then then I'll disappear in an abyss called the sales manager's office for about 7.5 minutes. I'll probably talk crap about you, or at least in your head, that's what you think I'm doing. And then I'll come back with some chicken scratch on a Foursquare, and I'm just assuming that this is supposed to be like what I'm supposed to get. So what we did at our dealership, because I had to increase closing ratios, there was no other way around it, is we empowered not only the employee but also the customer. We stuck the build and price function, or our desking tool, on a 50-inch screen mounted up on the wall. And in each salesperson's office, right? We actually got rid of desk, because I hate desk. I hate being on one side and then you being on the other. It's like a proverbial game of like poker. And then we just had a keyboard and a mouse. Now, the idea originally was that the salesperson was going to walk them through the building of the payment, and they could see it right there, so they could see total transparency.
Sure.
The funny thing is, I had a bunch of old guys working for me. So what they did, not knowing any better, they just moved the keyboard and mouse over to the customer. And I was a little upset when they first started doing this. But then the crazy thing is that our closing ratios were increasing and our profit per transaction was increasing. And it came down to the fundamental things that us as a dealership was not creating the payment. It was the customer creating the payment. And how could they argue with that? But I wanted to bring that up because you nailed something on the head there. It was just like you had to empower the customer and the employee at the same time to be able to go down that path together. I apologize for cutting you off there, but please continue on how you guys do that.
It's a fabulous example of the story. So, you can imagine in this high anxiety environment that we're in today, right? COVID, and it's not ending anytime soon. Realize polio still exists, right? There's a vaccine. All the diseases that ever existed really still exist, and tuberculosis, all that. So it's going to be a new paradigm. And I know in the car business, you went to work sick. If you had the sniffles, you had the flu,
100%.
You were at work, you called in sick, you better be close to your deathbed. Today, if you sneeze, you're locked in a room and, there's a red flag or something on it. So we're going to be short of people. And so now we're forced to pilot something for the dealers that may still be hesitant weren't forced to get more throughput out of fewer people. So it's actually a fabulous time for the car business. And I think Mike Jackson was just quoted from AutoNation saying, I feel uncomfortable saying this, but the COVID could have probably been the best thing to happen for the retail industry. And it really is one of those cataclysmic, I don't know if I can say the word right, but let's just say profound changes.
No, it really is. I mean, look, we hate to say it, but as an industry, look, we changed more in the last 5 to 6 months than we probably have in the last 40 years combined.
Right.
Like it pushed us, and the customer has always been changing, but as an industry, we kind of just still wanted to kind of hold on to that original control.
Sure.
And now, a pandemic kicks in and we have no control.
That's right.
Like as dealers, we have no control over this at all. And now we got to put that control back into the customer. And that kind of leads me into my next topic with you, which is just kind of the next transition from empowering your employees is that seamless online to in-store sales process, right? Again, we were kind of forced. And I actually have been criticized for maybe having too much tough love for our industry, but I'm going to give our industry props because we did this. Like we changed in 4 months, and we've been fighting it for the last 10, 15 years.
Right.
But I want to get your kind of thoughts on how do you see the seamless online to in-store sales process work now, and how is that going to work into the future?
Sure. Well, first I'll start with a little bit of philosophy, and then talk about the technology that's real world. So the first part of this is that customers actually enjoy buying a car in person. They really do. And it's kind of like food, right? I rather be in a restaurant than have take home food, but sometimes I got to do the take home. Never the same.
Never the same.
Now, of course, there's parts of that process that no one really enjoys, including the salesperson or the staff. So the online aspect that has been forced upon us because of the pandemic has allowed dealers to get up to speed quickly, and I wrote an article, I think you kind of referred to it at the top of this interview, and that was, did COVID just deliver a knockout punch to dealer disruptors? And I think Ward's Automotive published it. And the whole idea was this, is that dealers sometimes are the last to the party, but they bring the best liquor.
That's a great way to describe it. That's awesome.
And you know, there's billion-dollar tech companies out there that have been trying to get dealers to do digital online retailing. And they've struggled because dealers are slow to adapt until it's necessary, because dealers rely on cash flow, right? Hey, this works. I'm making money. I'm able to pay my employees. They're not like the Silicon Valley companies in Wall Street where they just run on revenue, even though they're bleeding cash out the back door. So, you know, you look at like Carvana, which has done a fabulous job of waking people up of what's possible. Mm-hmm. But dealers can not only match Carvana once they have woken up, which has helped the pandemic, but dealers have the parts and service business. Dealers have the infrastructure already paid for typically. They don't have a lot of debt. Certainly the majority of good ones don't, unless they borrow it on purpose because interest rates are below 1%, and I'll borrow all the money I can.
Or their manufacturer forced them to because they have to remodel their dealership, which they just remodeled 5 years ago. Sorry, source subject.
Yes, and still paying for it. Yeah. So the beauty here is that dealers are fabulous close followers and often pick up the spoils of war. So a lot of the tech companies that said they were going to replace the traditional retailer model, are now partnering with large dealer groups to execute that technology. And actually those dealer groups are saving the bacon for these companies that were about to go out of business. And, you know, Vroom, a lot of people say, oh, look at Vroom, they're going to crush the dealers.
That's a perfect example though. They're bringing process. They're bringing process and tech.
Absolutely. And guess who funded them? AutoNation and a couple other large dealer groups are the main investors. So it's odd that the tech companies that predicted the demise of the dealership world, an extinction of dinosaurs, if you will, are now having to partner with the beast that they thought was going to be extinct. So the online process that is critical now is that take the pain points out of the process by allowing the customer, if they choose to do as much online. Now, of course, some of the processes you can execute all the way to the end. And there are a fraction, maybe, I think the last numbers I saw were 3% of people in metropolitan areas that are having cars delivered to them. Now, I would argue it's only 3% because people don't want to go into a dealership and potentially expose themselves with COVID. But as the world tends to right-side itself, if I can get my trade valuation hammered out, get my financing approved, know what my payments are going to be, pre-select my after-sales items I want, and I go to the dealership to smell the car and spend the time with the happy stuff, just learning about it.
That's the fun part. Like, I want to do the fun part. And you know what it is? It's like it's giving the customer a choice, which has never been a part of our sales efforts ever. Right. It's like, no, there's no choice. All right, there's my way. And if you're going to buy a car, you're going to have to come in, you're going to have to go through my process, not your process.
Yes.
And I've seen, here's my concern, Brian, I want to get your thoughts on this, is that I saw a whole bunch of dealerships shift to that because they had to, right? Because they had to. But then I'm seeing this in the last few months, this false sense of success. And I'm seeing a lot of dealerships go back. Like they just want to like, okay, that was fun. Like, no, we're back. What do you say to the dealerships that are in that kind of position?
Well, I have a little analogy for that. It's like bending wood to build a ship. You're putting a lot of water on the wood and you're constantly pressing it to change its original shape. And the thing that's going to help dealers stay on this right and what I believe is the correct path to online to in-store and employee empowerment is profits. So right now, most dealerships are making a huge amount of money because they have less people in the process. The customers are actually paying more for the privilege of enjoying the experience. And there's nothing wrong with that because
No, not at
I
all.
pay, look, we have a grocery store in California called Gelson's. And basically for a bottle of water, they're at least $1 more than a Ralph's or a Vaughn's or any of your common stores. But when I go in, I'm never waiting in line. Everything is straight as an arrow. I have OCD. So if I see something out of line, I start fixing the stuff like I work there. So I'm paying for the experience and my time savings. And I could argue that I'd pay a little bit more for a car or negotiate less aggressively just to get in and out quickly. So we all have examples of that in other industries. And it's something the dealerships, again, close followers, but the profits are going to, an employee engagement and employee morale.
It does, but it all comes down to convenience, right?
Yes.
The reason that you have no beef whatsoever spending that extra $1 a water bottle or whatever it is there is they've processed convenience for you.
Yes.
And what the pandemic has done, and which has forced us to do, is to really try to connect the dots between our online and our in-dealership process. Yeah, before it was always separate, right? Like I remember sitting down in some meetings and go, oh, those internet leads.
Yes.
Like, what are they? They some different person? Are they from another world or something? Like internet leads, and then people inside my dealership were two entirely different individuals, and we did not emphasize our efforts with them as much. And then during the pandemic, we had to. We couldn't view the online customer any different than we could the in-dealership customer. So our attention to them had to be equal, right?
Yes.
But that created convenience for the customer. And to your point, customer has no problem paying for convenience. We all pay for convenience,
Yep.
and we have no issue with that. Now, here's the thing, and this kind of leads us into my next topic, is to maintain that type of convenience, right? There's this kind of 24/7 kind of customer engagement type mentality that I think has to happen. And, look, there were some amazing tools that I saw before the pandemic. For the last 5 years, I've seen some amazing tools. All of a sudden now I see an insane amount of tools using AI and advanced learning and machine learning, conversation chatbots. Like, is that the direction that we have to head down towards so we can maintain this level of convenience?
Well, this is a wonderful topic, and we could spend a day on this. But
Probably.
let me share. I'll share my opinion with your question. So this is another part of omni-channel, that there are some people that are hesitant to speak to a salesperson. It doesn't matter whether it's a car or clothes, because they don't want to get to a point of feeling obligated. And frankly, I'm one of those. If I walk into a clothing store, I'm buying a tie or a pair of socks before I leave, even if I don't need them. If I'm taking another human being's time and they're decent and nice, I feel bad. But here's the cool thing. I'm going to refer to a survey that was done. It's 2018, but it's still relevant. The Rikus Group, Mark Rikus, my buddy, he did a survey with Cox Automotive, sponsored it, and that was a simple question that was asked to automotive purchase intenders and people who bought cars. And the question was this: if it were easier and stress-free to buy a car, new car or used car, would you buy one more frequently? And really 38% of the people said I would buy a car more frequently if the process was enjoyable, is the bottom line. Right?
Wow, that's cool.
And so that made me extremely optimistic about, first of all, the future of the car business, because I live in a decent area in the Hollywood Hills here, and I've got people that they're living in multi-million-dollar homes, and they drive a 15-year-old Cadillac, Lincoln, Mercedes, and it's not because they can't afford a new one. In fact, they're spending more maintaining those cars than what a lease payment would be on a new one, right? So when I talk to my neighbors, because of course I either approach them or they approach me about the car business, and I say, why haven't you bought it? You don't even have side airbags. They've got airbags in cars now that come out of the sun visors, turns into a marshmallow if you get in an accident. And they go, I just can't stand buying a car. It's no offense against you, Brian, but man, it stresses me out. And the optimistic part of that is, as we make it easier, boom, we're going to do it. So going back to your point of the tools. So 24/7. I don't know about you, but most of my Amazon purchases happen after a couple glasses of wine and 10 p.m.
Brian,
Okay?
I think you must know me. I mean,
Well,
like I just got a notification actually that one just got delivered. Don't you love that, by the way?
Well,
Like,
it's an endorphin hit
it's the
or
best
something.
thing ever. But I'm with you 100%. It's
Yeah.
at the end of the night, I'm doing my editing or working on something, a couple glasses of wine. Oh yeah, you know what? I do need another set of. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Sorry,
Right.
go ahead, continue.
And actually, well, and even for non-alcoholics, the benefit is that people have kids and they got to put them to bed. And the only time they can have time for themselves to go online is typically after business hours, right?
100%.
So here's this thing called the internet. And oh boy, I can order a book online, which started, of course, with Amazon in, I don't know, 98, 97, maybe 94. But now we're with cars, but there was a big problem. You really couldn't ask questions that were relevant and would make you feel better and smarter offline because you had to get a hold of an internet person, as you referred to. Well, now we have these conversational chatbots, and this isn't the chatbot that most are on being used today, and certainly the ones from just a few years ago that are terrible. You know, hi, I'm Gidget, and what can I answer for you? And you say, well, what would a payment be on a 3-year lease on a Ford Escort? And it says, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I'll have a salesperson call you tomorrow morning.
What's your email and phone number and blood type?
Yeah, right. So, but today, I don't know if you've seen this movie a few years ago called Her, H-E-R.
That was amazing.
Joaquin
Really,
Phoenix.
really nice one.
Right. Or even most recently, Blade Runner, where the Harrison Ford character, I forget who played the doggone deal, but he kind of falls in love with his Alexa device. It's a holographic, woman. And I can tell you the stuff that I have seen that is about to roll out and when I say about, I mean, it was going to be at NADA this year. I don't know what they're going to do because NADA is virtual, but it's conversational. We're literally like talking to Alexa, and I have to be careful. She's going to ask me something here in a second, but you simply could say, hey, tell me, does Galpin Motors have the GT with package 503A, and what's a 3-year lease down, monthly payment with no money down? You can talk to it like that, and it comes back. And then on top of that, it emails you the dialogue and emails you links to what you discussed. So the verbal becomes in writing. It's really amazing what's going to happen. Now, the beauty is this gives you sales. The dealerships literally becomes open 24 hours a day. And so this is going to be a big change this in really 4 or 5 months. And one of the leading companies doing this now is called Car Labs. You'll hear about this company a lot in the very near future, but it does the heavy lifting. Salespeople don't like to do cold calls, but these computers don't mind.
That's how BDCs got started.
Right.
I mean, one of my first jobs outside of being a salesperson, my first job was becoming a BDC manager. And, in the beginning, I was like, I'm sorry, you want me to do what? You want me to do what majority of the salesperson's job and then just hand it over to them? I'm like, yeah, no, not interested. And then they show me the pay plan. I'm like, okay, no, I can actually work with that. It's that I always thought that in a dealership, we wore way too many hats. We were always kind of the jack of all trades and master of absolutely nothing, right? And I always thought I saw, through my entire time in the industry, some of the most successful dealerships that I ever got an opportunity to visit or consult with or whatever, really did understand that people had to own certain parts of the transaction or the presentation or the payment negotiation, and just let people be masters of that. I'm thinking right now is that as a dealership, if you're out there and you're listening and watching this right now, you need to start having the conversation. Do you need to go run out and jump out and buy this technology right now? You may or may not, all right? But you got to have that conversation around how this can actually impact your customers. And I think we're very open to having this conversation now because we've learned over the last 4 months that we can continue to do a lot with a little if we're way more efficient with our processes and our technologies.
Well, and this may be a sad fact, but people tend to trust technology and digital things more than they trust a salesperson who they believe has a vested interest in their own agenda.
Oh, man, that's
frankly,
so true.
there's going to be a little truth to that until we develop trust. So it's kind of like, well, if it's printed on the internet, it must be true. So I say printed, it shows you how old I am. But the technology actually works well in the car business in this respect. I call it high tech and high touch. And the car business is a people business, but we have to break the trust barriers, or I should say the barriers to trust. And technology can help us do that. And of course, you have online vehicle appraisal tools that actually today they'll even guarantee you X amount and come and pick up your car. So that trust goes a long way into getting more people into the purchase funnel. And that's why I'm so optimistic that I think we're in for some tough times because of the pandemic, that the other shoe is going to drop about financial implications of the unemployed, especially in the hospitality, travel, restaurant business, but and a lot of retail stores.
Well, I'm so glad that you said that because, there's a lot of dealerships out there that think we're back to normal. And I'm like, we're still only dealing with the social impact of this.
Yes.
We've really not dealt with the economics of this at all. I mean, I'm in Canada, you're in the US. Both of our governments have done a good job of creating this shield.
We've insulated from the freezing temperatures outside.
Exactly. We've kind of insulated ourselves, and we have not really felt the economics of this. Actually leads me to my next question is I'm with you. I think, winter's coming. No pun of Game of Thrones, but it's going to be a cold one. But I think dealerships need to find new revenue streams. And I just want to get your kind of thought on that. I think there's just so many different opportunities out there. And I know that you have written about a few of them. So new revenue streams, what do you, if you had to pick 2 or 3, because I know there's a lot of opportunity. If you had to pick 2 or 3, what would be your number 3 or top 3 choices?
Okay, this is fun. Well, first of all, I believe the dealer is the natural beneficiary of the changes in new trends of automotive. And those new trends today have to do with financing and utilization. And let me explain that a little bit. So we've all recently in the last few years heard of subscription. And an old car guy will just say, well, that's just renting a car. And well, they're right. But it's actually more on a recurring revenue model. And so tying this back to the potential winter we're really going to see, we're going to have a lot of people that will not qualify for traditional financing because they're either not going to have a job or they're going to have a much lower income job.
That's very true.
And those people will struggle to get a new or used car and certainly to finance it. So subscription is going to get from an odd source a lift, because with subscription, you don't look at someone's credit, you look at other behaviors for them to qualify. So for example, one of them is a driving record. Are these people good custodians of a vehicle?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. The other is their spending habits. You can buy this data today. That's a little scary, but it is what it is. And that is, where do they spend money on their credit cards? Is it the bad part of town or the good part of town? Or is it superfluous stuff? Or are they getting Entrepreneur Magazine versus Mad Libs or something?
Do they still make those?
It just shows you how old I am. I don't know. I said, gosh, I'm so terrible. But the fact is that behavior technology today is actually proving to be a better indicator of somebody's repayment ability than a FICO score. And new fintech companies are actually aligning with major banks to give them an alternative to look at somebody that, hey, I'm going to approve this person because they may not have a job, but they've got $150,000 in the bank and they've been solid and they're a good risk. And even better, if they're financing a subscription program for a dealership, the customer can simply return the car if they can't afford the payment anymore.
Yeah, the risk factor is not there as much as full ownership.
Right. And it's not a repossession. It's simply, I'm done with it. So dealers are, so many pundits against automotive retailers have said, oh, fewer people are going to own cars in the future. More people are going to use them on demand. And pre-COVID, that certainly seemed the way things were going. Yeah. But oddly now, more people want to acquire a car instead of using public transportation. And for those that can't qualify through traditional means, this is like a sophisticated buy here, pay here with subscription. And I don't mean this to be an advertisement for HyreCar, but that's what we do. We help dealers get into the on-demand rental industry, and we focus on rideshare drivers, food, and package delivery to use cars, either aged inventory or underutilized rentals or loaners. The dealer owns the car and they get revenue that way more offsets the depreciation, and we insure it so that risk doesn't belong to the dealer. And then even better, well over 30% of these people, the drivers, buy a car in less than 90 days.
No, look, we got to have the conversation. I had a dealership the other day. You'll love this one. Used car dealership, high-end vehicles, right? Had a Lexus. Oh, what's the long body? Is it like an SL?
The LS.
The LS, yeah. Right? And this was even the extended version. And just been sitting on the lot for over 100 days, just not the right car, not the right market, not 100% sure to do with it. And I said, well, we'll throw it on Turo. And they're like, what's Turo? And I'm like, well, you own the car, all right? You get to rent it out at a daily rate. Right. And sure enough, they did this, and within 2 months, they actually were able to mark the car down to a price point where they could actually retail their way back out of it versus wholesaling out of it. But we have to get creative. And you know what? And when I say we have to, I really mean we have to, because dealers, if you don't start having these conversations now, your manufacturers already are.
They are. And the beauty here, the dealer already owns all the infrastructure to do this.
100%,
right?
Absolutely.
They have the real estate, they have the people, they have the service department, they have everything that they need. So literally, they don't even have to buy cars. They just use the cars they have. Now, COVID has created a unique bubble that dealers could pretty much sell a Schwinn bike if it's on the showroom floor today. So
holy cow, you're 100% right. I tried to buy one recently. It wasn't going to happen. You couldn't find one.
It's so true. So I'm really excited. Now, it goes even further, and it's a little further out, but it's less than 5 years. Autonomous vehicle fleets. Who better to own an autonomous vehicle fleet than a dealership where the dealer has the neighborhood, the relationship with their community, and people want to whistle for a car, right? It's kind of like Trigger from the Lone Ranger, awesome. And just think of that. That's a whole nother life cycle to add to the ecosystem of traditional dinosaur Jurassic Park automobile dealers. And it's so exciting.
It really is exciting. And I've already started to see a bits and pieces of this start to come in. And dealers, when I say you guys need to figure this out yourselves first, because your manufacturer is, I'll give you an example. Toyota has a program called Kinto.
Correct.
This is a global program, and it's so funny how I don't hear dealers really talking about this program much, but I'm like, this program could fundamentally threaten, all right, the way dealers sell cars. The manufacturer is building the technology into the car at the plant.
That's right.
Where someone can literally go on their phone and, I need a RAV4 for a few hours.
Right.
And boom, I pull up to the dealership. I unlock and start the car with this. I don't have to talk to anybody. I don't have to see anybody. And the manufacturer is building this technology inside their cars. So dealers, you got to start having this conversation right away. Now, speaking of autonomous vehicles, I actually took an autonomous taxi when I was in Las Vegas. And 100%. Once it's, I'll be there. It was like I cannot see any issues. I mean, the amount of just productivity I would get from not having to drive, just
absolutely.
so much, right? Like, I mean, I drive a lot, right? I am, let's see, I drive about 8,000 kilometers a month. So in miles, it's roughly about 5,000 miles, 5,000 miles a month. I do an oil change every month, right? And I have a driver because I am trying to stay productive at the exact same time. That sounds really precautious, by the way. Sorry.
That's fantastic. No, it's the smartest thing you can do.
But
I take Uber and Lyft for the same reason.
100%. No, I won't do that though. Recently, like, have you done? Like, I just feel because the social impact. I don't think I'd jump back into an Uber.
I have, simply for what you just said. So many emails to return and phone calls to make, and it's about an hour drive to downtown LA for me, although it's less because of COVID today. But getting that extra time going to the office and coming back, it's well worth the 30 or 40 bucks that it takes to pay for their transportation. But again, dealers will own this, and they got to do it quickly, as you accurately stated. If they don't, the manufacturers will. And the Kinto Share program from Toyota, it is operated by Toyota. All they do is they lease dealership parking spaces.
I know, isn't that beautiful? Like, I mean, it's scary, but beautiful at the same time.
It is, except the dealer's getting a fraction of the revenue.
I know.
Right? So the dealer, now, fortunately, there's companies like Clutch that HyreCar is a partner with, Clutch Technologies, and they license to dealers all the technology they need to get into subscription, leisure rental. We partner with them for the commercial rental, people that want to rent a car for rideshare and food package delivery, Amazon trucks, all that. But anyway, dealers can get this for really inexpensive money. It might be $1,800 a month, but it's found business because these people will, a good percentage, buy cars. And what we certainly know is it increases your service business as well. It feeds the whole ecosystem. You get trade-ins, but I implore dealers.
And I feel like right now, Brian, like, this is the time.
It is.
Like, that snowball of change started to roll, and I hope that it continues to roll. The changes, like you were talking about earlier, the changes with fintech companies and those new fintech companies that are coming out, and they're looking beyond just the FICO score or your credit score or your income. They're looking at all of your behavior collectively together. It's just like, everything's like primed. Like, it is literally the right time and moment for this to have this. And I know I keep beating this over the head, but yet we have to start having these conversations inside these dealer meetings. Look, as an industry, we're not known for being proactive.
Yeah. Because proactive tends to be expensive, right?
That's true.
You look at these startups, and 80% of them fail, and a car dealership has to feed the mouth every month. So, but again, being a close follower isn't bad, where they can pick up technology dirt cheap after someone spent $1 billion making it, and that's what's happening right now.
It is. It's happening right now, and got to have these conversations you have at the dealership level. Look, Brian, I know it's the tail end of our time today, and man, this went fast. Man, we touched on some subjects that we could easily go on.
We got more later on. Let's do this again soon.
We're definitely going to have to do this again soon.
I'm going to leave one plug with you.
Please do.
Digital license plates are coming, and dealers are going to benefit from that for revenue streams that are so unique. But maybe that could be the start of a topic at our next meeting.
Digital license plates.
License
plates. Now I'm gonna have to go Google something right after this.
Yeah, go to Reviver. Go to reviver.com. REVIVER.com.
That
check
is
it out.
Cool.
They're coming.
It's coming.
California and Arizona right now.
Is that? I was going to say, who's going to launch it first?
It's already launched in California and Arizona, fully integrated with the DMV, and they look amazing.
Wow!
Outside of all that, you never have to go to the DMV to renew anything. No tags on the license plates to be stolen or get disfigured, whatever. But then 15 states are rolling by the middle of next year, and international. Dubai just ordered 1 million of them. But and you could put little messages on them. It's go to reviver.com, check it out. I'm
totally going to check that out. Here in Ontario, we actually came out with a new design, and all of the police cameras could not actually capture the new designs. So they actually had to recall every single plate out there with this new design.
My goodness.
And it's costing the government just an ungodly amount of money, and everyone's kind of like, who got fired over this one? Like,
Wow.
talk about it seriously. So that's actually pretty cool. I'm going to check that out.
Well, to your point, that one of the biggest proponents of the digital plates are the government, because, for example, California spends somewhere north of $30 million mailing hard plates, and that doesn't include producing them. Now, they've got prisoners that produce the plates, so the labor is pretty cheap.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is you think of mailing tags, and also when it's a digital process, people pay more timely because they get reminded, hey, time to renew your plate. You press a button, the new tags digitally show up on your license plate. Pretty slick.
It is very cool. You know what? It's a super exciting time to be in our industry.
It is.
Like it really is. Like, I mean, you've been in it a lot longer than I have, but I mean, I'm so glad that I got into it when I got into it. And it's like in the last 15 years, almost 18 years, I guess, I've seen everything kind of grow and get bigger. And it's like, but this is the time. Like, it is really, really exciting. There's just so much going on. But Brian, before I let you go, though, for everybody that's been watching and listening, and they're probably just hungry for more, to be honest with you, because we've pretty much just given them little morsels of some amazing topics. What is the best way for someone to connect with you?
Well, if they look on LinkedIn, Brian Allan, Allan, I have my mobile number, email. It's pretty simple. Brian, Brian, at respective.io, respective.io. And my mobile number is on LinkedIn. And I love to share ideas and revenue opportunities. And it's, as you said, it's almost like the digital version of the Industrial Revolution in 1900. And it's just, Elon Musk is probably Henry Ford, Albert Einstein, and so whatever his name was, von Braun, all of them put together.
Yep.
And we're alive to see all this amazing stuff happen. The tragedy is the pandemic, but the pandemic's going to make us all better. And, God bless everybody to get through it.
And you know what? Like, I couldn't have said it any better. Let's keep that momentum. Let's keep that snowball of change moving. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. This has been a ton of fun. You have yourself an amazing day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy Mob podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to sign up to be a mobster at strategymob.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.